send it to us. Things that you may not think are important could be the pivotal piece of information for us to finally figure out what actually happened. I have the utmost hope that the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of Inspector General, who are conducting this investigation, will share evidence with us. Regardless of whether they do or not, we will go to the ends of the earth to collect all the evidence so that we can eventually let the public know what happened. That request for the public extends to all of our media partners as well. Any surveillance footage that you have collected, any witnesses that you've identified, please share it with us. We need to be able to tell all 5 million residents of Harris County, everyone in the state of Texas, and quite frankly, everyone in the world, that we are doing everything to uphold all of our oaths. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the Congresswoman. I'll be here to answer any questions you'll have. Yes, sir.
Thank you. He's absolutely correct. All of us here, and we do have the county attorney, Abby Kamen, and we have Representative Wu with us. All of us at every level just express our deepest condolences to the family and promise them that we will continue to working together to ensure that we do have justice in this case and that the family gets answers. We need to do that for them, just like we would do it if it was one of your family members. And I know many are asking. We've gotten many calls. Who's next? Will I be next? We're fortunate that we've got 2 members of Congress of 2 committees of jurisdiction. Christian Menefee is on the Oversight Committee, and he will be doing what he can through that committee. And with us today is Congressman Green, who sits on the Committee of Department of Homeland Security, which has direct oversight on Department of Homeland Security and, of course, ICE. Congressman.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
We're going to go back to our panel now. Let's bring in MS Now reporter David Noriega, who has been monitoring closely the developments of this story as they evolve. Also with me, immigration attorney Alan Orr Jr. and Philip Bump still with me as well. David, walk us through what we've been hearing over the past 24 hours. What have we learned about the facts in this case?
Well, the biggest pieces of information, in my view, Ariel, are the ones that come from the conversation that Representative Sylvia Garcia says she had yesterday with David Venturella, who is the fairly recently appointed new acting director of ICE. 2 crucial pieces of information there. The first is that the ICE agents who were involved in this shooting and in this vehicle stop were not wearing body cameras. That's huge because we so far have not seen any other video of this incident. And as we've reported extensively here, we know that in prior similar cases like this one, where federal immigration agents shoot people and then claim that they were under threat and firing in self-defense, those claims were subsequently undermined by video evidence. So the question is really what kind of evidence will be available to assess the veracity of those claims. The other piece of information that came from Representative Garcia is the fact that Venturella told her that apparently Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, was not actually the intended target of this, what they call a targeted operation. It's unclear to me from the way she's been the congressman has been talking about this, whether they were targeting someone else in the car or whether he resembled someone else that they were targeting. Either way, this is important, of course, because the law enforcement in the U.S. can't just stop whoever they want. We have a Bill of Rights. We have a 4th Amendment. The last thing I'll say, just quickly, Ariel, on the question of what other evidence is available to assess what happened here and assess specifically DHS's justification for the shooting, is we did hear from a lawyer who says that he spoke in this press conference, who says that he spoke to the 3 men who were in the car with Salgado Araujo and who obviously were direct witnesses to the shooting, who he says, the lawyer says, directly contradicted the claim that Salgado tried to run over any of the ICE agents in in this stop. Those men are in ICE detention. People in ICE detention are often hard to reach, so I think it's notable that this lawyer was able to go and meet with them. I do think it's also interesting here, Ariel, that Venturella, the ICE director, even had this conversation with Sylvia Garcia and seems to be sort of trying to share information to whatever degree he feels capable of doing so. Garcia described their conversation as diplomatic. This is obviously a clear example of the change in style from the last management of ICE and DHS under Kristi Noem to the new one under Markwayne Mullin. But of course, Ariel, in spite of that, this man was still shot and killed on the street, and DHS is still claiming what it's claimed in every similar case before and not offering evidence to substantiate that claim. And so it's a question about whether that change in style actually amounts to a change in substance as well.
Definitely. It is interesting and notable that there's perhaps at least a perceived attempt at some kind of communication, especially under Kristi Noem, as we saw a lot of criticism that local authorities were not being briefed, were not getting information from federal authorities. So, Alan, the DA did not mince words here about the lack of cooperation in the investigation from federal authorities. Does that surprise you? And does it surprise you what David is saying, that there has been some outreach or some modicum of communication here?
Does not surprise me that it's gone silent, much like it did in Minneapolis. What we should understand is that this is pretty much the protocol right now. And the acting director of ICE doesn't really have a lot of experience in doing this sort of enforcement and follow through. And as was stated, ICE officers aren't doing police stops. They're not able to just stop cars for running signs and the like. And so this is a very problematic case because essentially every American should hear this. How did they know the status of the individual if he was not the target? So therefore, this could have happened to anyone in America at this point in time because they didn't know the person's status. He wasn't a target and it was an unmarked car. So all those things consistently taken together don't speak to immigration enforcement. And even if the person was here undocumented or in the process of getting documentation, death should not be what is the consequence in this situation.
Certainly not. Alan, 3 men in the vehicle with Salgado Araujo, as we've been hearing from the new reporting, are disputing the version of events from DHS, saying that it did not veer into or towards ICE agents. According to the reporting that we've gotten from the Washington Post and some of the updates in this briefing. Meantime, we also were hearing that none of these ICE agents were wearing body cameras. So there's no body camera footage. There's the plea now that we're getting from the district attorney for any kind of surveillance video or security camera footage. As an immigration lawyer, how do you proceed with this information that we already have and the lack of information, the video?
So there is some surveillance camera. There will be footage from the scene that sort of takes place. It's also the trajectory of the bullet itself. But I think we should go back to the common rules that have been established by the Supreme Court and federal enforcement with regards to stopping a car and shooting at a car with a gun, which we've already established in Minneapolis. You just don't do it, specifically unless there is some other major reason to do it. The harm, the increase of something happening to some bystander is greater than actually capturing that individual unless you have a greater threat. So just on that factual engagement matter established by 2 Supreme Court cases and federal policy, shooting at a car should have never happened, and maybe stopping the car when the person didn't know who you were is also a problem. So when we look at the facts in the situation, not knowing what he was, not being a police stop, the situation of shooting when this person has no criminal history and has been in the country for a long time sort of says to me in a lawyer analysis that there's something wrong here.